Morena, a warm welcome to the Central Meeting and Infrastructure Committee here on the 18th of November 2021. Warm welcome, and as is our custom, we will start with karakia. Tuia ki runga, tuia ki rarahu, tuia ki rarahu, tuia ki waho, tuia te hei tangata, ka runga te po, ka runga te ao, humi e, hui e, taiki e. Again, a warm welcome to members of the committee and officers, and Councillor Brand, who is joining us via Zoom. Usual live streaming protocols apply, and Zoom, just those, when you're speaking, just remember to put on your speaker, and just remember the social distancing rules around the chamber. Right, next item is the apologies. I have a long list of apologies. For from Her Worship the Mayor, Deputy Mayor Councillor Edgar, Councillor Fulton, Councillor Noonan, Councillor Roney, and Councillor Sanson. The apologies that I received. I'll move. Someone to second. Thanks, Councillor Courtney. Those in favour will say aye. Anyone against? Anyone abstained? Carried. Confirmation of the order of business as per the agenda, with the exception is that we'll do Jenny M first for recycling around Nelson, followed by Frederick Conqueror. So as per the agenda, and no other changes. Just a reminder to keep your interests of any interests that need to be declared to it at the appropriate time, and just a reminder to keep the interests register up to date. Right, public forum. Welcome, Jenny. Can you hear us? Your microphone is off, so turn the mute off. There you go.
Yep.
You're going to talk to us about recycling in Nelson City. Over to you. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good morning, Your Worship, our mayors and fellow councillors. I am Jeannie, the little lady of Mount Street, Nelson City. I've lived in Nelson for 34 years on Gulf Road and Bledisloe Avenue, Adawai, and now Mount Street. During my time in Nelson, I've conscientiously picked up litter in our city, on our walkways and on our beaches. Much of the litter I collect may be recycled, but some is just rubbish. I have spoken in schools about litter and recycling, taken a one-woman protest through the Nelson Saturday Market to Nick Smith and made a presentation. Recently, I went online and adopted my spot at Kinsit Terrace Car Park Beachfront Road Reserve Walkway Cycleway behind the City Club facility. This is my most recent collection. I have some concerns with regards to litter and recycling in Nelson City and the city region. I'm concerned about the lack of recycling facilities in our fair city. There are currently 3 stainless steel recycling bins in the centre of Trafalgar Street on the footpath and 1 yellow recycling bin in Montgomery Square. The recycling bins that used to be in Millers Acre car park have been removed. There are 26 designated car parks for self-contained vehicles in Montgomery Square. There are also 12 designated car parks in Buston Square and 4 at Kinsit Terrace. Kinsit Terrace car park often has far more than 4 vehicles parked overnight, and many of them are not self-contained. There are no recycling bins available in these car parks. Many of the people in these vehicles drink liquids contained in cans and bottles. Where are the recycling bins to accommodate ease of disposal? What is Nelson City Council's policy on education with regards to recycling? What advertising is there on this subject matter? Where is the literature? What is the public's level of literacy? Coca-Cola has an advert on TV showing a ladybug organising a team of ants to carry an empty plastic Coca-Cola bottle up a tree trunk along a branch and drop it into a recycling bin. Unfortunately, though, Coca-Cola bottles have a reducing symbol. There is no associated number to let people know if it may be recycled in Nelson City, where only plastics 1, 2 and 5 may be recycled. Canterbury Council has a cool advert about recycling and composting. When I paid my green waste at the refuse station, the man who took my money said he was sick and tired of all the recyclables sitting around at the dump not being recycled. He had literally had enough of litter. In Sundial Square, Richmond, everywhere there is a rubbish bin, there is a recycle bin placed next to it. At Richmond BP, there have been large recycling bins outside the premises for years. Z Energy Nelson City has recycling bins at each set of pumps. Green Meadows and Stoke has recycling bins inside the building. The New Youth Park in Stoke has recycling and rubbish bins that are used even before it's officially opened. I read this information and saw the photos on Tim Skinner's Facebook page. I emailed Terry Dwyer of Nelson City Council to ask him, 1, what is the Nelson City Council's plan for future establishment and development of recycling facilities in Nelson City? 2, what is the Nelson City Council's budget for establishment and development of recycling facilities? Terry responded to my email with 4 links with regards to what Nelson City Council is doing with waste, none of which answered my questions. From my research, 38% of New Zealand litter is cigarette butts that take up to 10 years to biodegrade. I have a partial solution. My butt tin. This butt tin is kept in your butt pocket and is right there when you want to put your butt in. I'm a non-smoker, but I get hot sometimes. In New Zealand, there are fines for littering. Rarely does anyone get fined. In Singapore, there was a chewing gum and litter problem. Escalating fines for first, second, and third littering offences were introduced and a blanket ban on chewing gum. On the third offence, not only is there a large fine to pay, but also there is an associated jail term. In California, those who litter are fined and placed on public detention to pick up litter. I would like to encourage Nelson City Council to ensure there is a plan to minimise litter in Nelson City and region and to provide incentives for all Nelson businesses to participate in recycling opportunities for customers. For me, not littering, participating in recycling and composting are matters of respect for our environment and taking personal responsibility. Thank you for listening to and hearing my words on this matter. I encourage Nelson City Council to take action on planning and budgeting to contain, control and eliminate litter from our city streets and regional areas and to provide incentives for all businesses to minimise plastics and participate in recycling. Amen.
Okay, thanks, Jenny. You're slightly over time there. No questions? Thank you very, very much. Very appreciate a very clear submission about what you see the issue is.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
thank you very much for taking the time.
Yeah, bye-bye.
All right. Next, we have Mr. Fred Conqueror talking about a micromobility scheme for options for Nelson. You there, Mr. Conqueror? Are you there?
Good morning.
Good. We can hear you and you're up on the screen. So over to you. Have 5 minutes.
Excellent. Tēnā koutou katoa. Good morning, councillors, officers and members of the public. I have been invited here today by the council to speak briefly regarding electric scooters and micromobility for Nelson. My role is expansion and operations at Beam New Zealand, a shared scooter operator for Nelson. Next slide, please. Cool. All right, can we move to the next one? So today I'll speak briefly about shared e-scooters, a background in New Zealand and for Nelson context, talk a little bit about Beam as an operator, and then talk through next steps. Next slide, please. So in terms of a background, so currently shared e-scooters are operating in local government areas across New Zealand. Beam are operating in Auckland, Wellington and Palmerston North. The most recently council that has launched a shared e-scooter program is in Palmerston North, and local government areas across the country are considering and looking at how they can support safe and active and sustainable transport in their city areas. Generally, councils have varying approaches. So there's either trading permits, MOUs, and varying options for councils to look at these sort of trials. So what is the most common way has been that there's generally an initial trial to talk through to the public, to run this sort of system, and then be able to make any changes as required, and then look to establishing a more long-term approach. There is significant amount of research and literature across the country about the findings from these trials, and a lot of the key work has been done. So Beam have made a formal approach to the council to look at a shared micromobility scheme. This is most notably around e-scooters, but Beam also do provide shared e-bikes. So our approach is about looking at where we could support the city and provide shared micromobility within the city limits. And then we were encouraged to present to this forum to say, hey, this is about where the work that's been done already and some options for in the future. I'll note that the current parking and vehicle control bylaw does restrict what's called wheeled recreational devices within parts of the city on the footpaths. So currently, generally, e-scooter riders use the footpath, but in some areas they use the road. So I understand that there is some conversation about reviewing that, but currently this would require these devices to be used on the road only within those bylaw areas. E-scooters are defined by Waka Kotahi as wheeled recreational devices, and so they sit under that sort of bucket. All right, next slide, please. Thank you. So from a Beam perspective, so we're focused as an operator with putting safety first. So we have a large range of key safety features, both on our vehicles, around using and providing a helmet locking system. So the vehicles will have helmets. We also provide extensive safety training for riders, both in the app as a requirement before riding, and then extra e-safety and e-learning courses. We also do significant amounts of pop-up safety training events around the city. Our key focus otherwise is around sustainability. So as a carbon neutral company, we focus on sustainability of our vehicles and how we can provide a solution that can assist councils and people across New Zealand to be able to have an option to be able to travel sustainably. This also fits in with from a sustainability perspective around community sustainability. So on top of that, council license would be a sort of a social license to operate. And this allows us to be able to consult with community groups and key members of the community around how our service can support them. Supplementary to that, the shared e-scooter systems have the ability to help improve the vitality of city centres. So that's essentially looking at how the centre of the town can be increased in terms of the vitality, in terms of the benefits to local business. So that's around getting people out and about and sort of post-COVID, getting people back into town. Our system uses an approach called virtual docking. So we use what's called virtual docks around the city. So we would create our own virtual docks that the scooters can be using geofence technology to be parked there. All our staff, all our approach is done with our internal staff. So we don't use third-party contractors. We pay all our staff a living wage and we invest in the community. Our system has also got varying affordable options with concessions and student passes included. Next slide, please.
It's just a reminder, you got your 5 minutes is up, so.
Okay, all right. Off to the end then, that's fine.
Any questions? Got Councillor Laurie.
Good morning. Thank you very much for the presentation. Just curious, do you have any idea how many motor vehicle trips have been avoided as a result of companies like your company and Lime, and I think it's Flamenco, or is that another company? Is that part of your company? Well, the question is, how many motor vehicle trips have been avoided since scooter operators like yourselves started operating in Aotearoa?
Are you able to go to the last slide in my presentation? Just if you could share that on the screen. So I don't have that detail to hand, but an extensive amount of trips. So generally we find that there's quite a significant proportion new trips that have been generated, but it's also a significant amount. So we can provide in our report to council and councillors some evidence on that based on our operations to date.
Great, thank you. Another question, as these vehicles become more available and more affordable, do you think people will still want to hire them for these sort of short journeys?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we find that generally shared e-scooters are a pathway to micromobility. They're getting people back onto active transport where they haven't ridden a bike or a scooter for a very long time. We generally find that then they go out and buy their own e-bikes or bikes, and it's helping to build a stronger cycling and scooter culture for the city. But generally people still use them because not everyone brings their bike or their scooter into the city, or they might have a group of people with them or a family group. And so we find that it's generally building a stronger system. And so, yes, we see extensive evidence that people are still hiring them.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Bowater.
Thank you. I think it was the slide before. Can we actually get the slides sent to us?
Yes.
Yep, great. You've got GPS controlled speed. What is the speed of you've got the e-bike as well as the scooter? What's the top speed and how do you actually monitor that? Will you say GPS controlled speed?
Yes, so our vehicles have an internal control unit called an IoT device, so as well as an electric brake at the back. So generally in the slower zones, we operate around 15 k's an hour at max, and they will operate as a default up to 25 k's, and anything faster, the electric brakes will gently kick in and slow a vehicle down.
And what about the e-bikes? They're saying.
Yes, so the e-bikes use a similar system, but we generally don't enforce speed limits as such. Generally, the e-bikes will comfortably go on the road, so generally will sit within the road speed limits.
We've got a shared pathway into Nelson, which I'm quite nervous about being shared by e-bike, scooters, etc., as well as pedestrians. So would there be ways of managing that sort of environment if because technically it's a road, but it's not a road. So and it has no speed limit on it. So I'm just wondering how we would manage that sort of environment.
Yes.
If it was to be used in such a manner.
So one of the benefits of using shared vehicles is that they're subject to significant amounts of safety controls, and that private vehicles are not required to. So we've got in terms of power limitations and speed limitations, that are not necessarily applied to the general public on their own private vehicles. So we would look to apply a slow zone. So when the vehicle's GPS picks it up going into those areas, they will automatically slow down to say to 12 or 15 kilometres an hour.
Thank you, that's reassuring.
Thanks. Right, just one last question from me. Have you been in contact with our officers here at Nelson?
Yes, extensively. That's how this meeting came about. That was their recommendation.
Great, thank you very much. Thanks very much for your presentation, and we'll get the hard copy of your PowerPoint distributed to the members of the committee. And thanks for your time and your presentation. Next, we have the confirmation of the minutes. This is pages 7 to 9 of the agenda. Someone move the true and correct record.
I'll move.
Thanks, Councillor Courtney. Someone to second. Thanks, Councillor Skinner. Any discussion or debate? There being none, I'll put it. Those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Anyone against? Anyone abstaining? Carried. Chairperson's report. I do not have a chairperson's report, neither written nor verbal. So I'll move on to the first standard item is the annual report for the landfill business unit. Right, Mr. Clark to come forward. This is pages 10 to 38 in your agenda. Well, Nathan, take the report as read, but is there anything you wish to sort of highlight or add or emphasise?
Thank you. I'd just like to say for the landfill business unit, it's been quite a big year. We've done quite a lot of significant activities and launched into some improvement actions, particularly in regard to stormwater, fire management, litter management, and reducing our emissions profile from the landfill. So from our perspective, it's been very busy, but quite rewarding. So thank you.
Okay. Any questions of Mr. Clark? Yeah, Councillor Courtney.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
We're very inclusive.
We're inclusive here. Nathan, how high in your priorities is the leachate system review, and where has that got to?
In regard to leachate at Eves Valley landfill, we have a program of investigations on the discharge pipe from the Eves Valley landfill to Brightwater. There's investigations about the capacity and the I guess the resilience of that system. So there's no specific plan in place to resolve that at this present time. In regard to the York Valley landfill, leachate is collected at the base of the landfill. It has a collection system within the landfill, and it is directed to the Nelson City Council's sewer network. There are some resilience issues with our leachate system, which we're working through at the present time. And in the 22-23 year, we'll be requesting funding to resolve some of those issues.
Thank you. Can I have a follow-up on another topic? Is there a degree of urgency with that? That's on that one, yeah.
Yes, for the 22-23 year, the funding request has some urgency with it, yes.
Mr. Chair, I'll also just ask about the life of the landfill. In this report that's before us today, you mentioned 8 years, and then you somewhere else mentioned 5 years. And I'm just, is there any likelihood that the life of the landfill could be extended?
Yes, the landfill is subject, obviously, to the amount of material that comes in. We have a consent that has been granted that extends to 2034. The current generic shape of the landfill cap allows for a certain amount of waste, about 800,000 cubic metres, which is around 8 years. subject to, stability, leachate issues, etc., the life could reduce significantly below that. However, if we can put in place some remedial actions for leachate and the stability issues, then we can extend the life to the full extent of the consent or beyond, if we chose to. So we can extend the life, but it does require some investment in the landfill to do so.
Other questions?
I'm happy to move.
Okay, we received the report, that's all that's required. So it's moved. Councillor Courtney.
Question.
Councillor Laurie, a question?
Thank you. Good to see you. Thanks for the report. Just a sort of general overview question, really. It doesn't seem that long ago we heard from your good self, and it felt, I think, to myself and some other councillors that there were a few, maybe alarm bells is too strong a word, but there was some concern about whether or not we were going to be able to meet our obligations. And one thing that always sticks in my head is the idea of a wire or a power source that needed work. And I'm just wondering, are the alarm bells ringing as loudly now? If you're going to sort of really explain it to a layperson like myself.
So in regard to the power supply, that was probably Nelson Regional Storage Business Unit issue. So that one, I can certainly say that we have that we put in actions in place to mitigate those issues. In regard to the landfill, yes, there are still ongoing concerns around the landfill, particularly in regard to the airspace management. In the event that we can't extend the life of the landfill, there is a significant cost to the region for, firstly, finding another landfill site, and getting consent for that. And then secondly, in terms of ETS management, because the York Valley landfill has gas management systems. We are improving them all the time. But if we were to shift to another landfill, that would obviously reduce the amount of emission management we would have in place. And there would be quite a consequential cost of shifting from York Valley, because the ETS system would essentially accrue the full cost of our emissions at that time.
So in a year's time, if you look ahead through the chair, do you think things will be in a better position in terms of those concerns, or what's your feeling?
Yes, I believe significantly better than we are at the present time. I believe that we will have been able to implement the first part of remedial actions, and we will have also furthered the measures that we're implementing for emission control. So we'll have increased our certainty around the landfill stability, around leachate management, and around the ETS reductions that we're aiming for.
That is reassuring. Thank you. One more question through the chair, if that's okay. Just again, a sort of general one. If we took soft plastic out of the landfill, the amount of soft plastic that goes in there, like it's rubbish day on our street today, and our blue bag is basically just full of soft plastic, what difference would that make?
I'm sorry, I can't answer that off the top of my head. From a generic perspective, one of my priority points is timber and other organic materials going to landfill. Obviously, they generate more organic emissions, in the form of greenhouse gases. They also, for our region, are quite low density materials, so you can't compact them particularly well, and uses up more space in the landfill. So while I accept, soft plastics have been a focus point nationally, I mean, I've been trying to push down to a single priority product, which is timber and my thing. It has the largest ETS emission and is a significant portion of our waste stream. So we have been running a trial to try and see whether we can separate out and divert some of those materials from the landfill. But at the present time, we haven't been successful with making that an economic proposition.
All right. Well, thank you for trying. Cheers.
And could you speak more into the microphone? Yeah, you're a bit soft. Any other questions? So it's been moved by Councillor Courtney. Anyone to second? See the thought. Thanks, Councillor Bowater. Any discussion or debate? There be none. I'll put it. Those in favour will say aye. Aye. Anyone against? Anyone abstaining? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Stay right there. Moving on to the Sewage Business Unit annual report. Councillor Mailing, you'd like to come down and ask your tricky questions. Again, this is pages 39 to 79 in your agenda. It's actually your report, Mr. Lavertus, but
I was going to let, as was the previous one, through the chair, but it's running smoothly. So,
we'll leave it.
so let's run with it.
Okay. Take the reports read. Anything you wish to, again, highlight, accentuate the positive?
Yeah, the NRSBU has had again another big year similar to NTRLBU. We've had some pretty cool stuff that we've got in place. One of those cool items is we've implemented the water reuse facility. So it's an ultrafiltration system that allows us to recover around 500 cubic meters a day of wastewater primarily for reuse within the facility, but we're also looking at uses for irrigation, such as golf courses or other sports fields, etc. We've also been able to facilitate some public uses of some of our facilities. So the remote, I think it's the remote controlled yacht squadron are now have a facility on one of our ponds. It's not a sewage pond, but it's one of the ponds we have on the farm. And that's become considered one of the preeminent facilities within New Zealand now, in what is quite a very short time. And we've also tried to implement quite a lot of actions in and around climate adaptation or climate mitigation. So we put in some storm defence bunds around our pump stations. We're starting to build a bund around part of our plant to protect it from storm surge or from sea level rise. So from that perspective, we're pretty keen on the fact that we've had a really good year. Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, well, let's do.
Yeah, I have one.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, Nathan, staffing levels, are they causing some difficulties for you in regard to capital works, that type of thing?
Yes, that's definitely the case. Yeah, we currently have myself and the operations manager running both business units. So we have quite a large number of subcontractors and other, supporting companies, but it is difficult to resource in this current market, particularly given Three Waters reform and people staying still. And it will remain difficult for us to deliver what is an ambitious program over the next few years with the level of staffing that we have at present.
And how many are you short?
At the present time, we have one role vacant, and I've been preparing a business case to request more staffing. The fact that we can't find somebody to fill the vacant role means that we've been trying to reevaluate how we may get staff to fill, to get the capacity, and we may need to change the way we procure, have different types of roles rather than the ones we initially have anticipated.
Councillor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Same question as last time, really. Alarm bells, are any alarm bells ringing? If so, how loudly? And how do you think those alarm bells will be in 12 months' time? And it'd be great to hear from Kit and Nathan on this one, please.
So I can start and then I'll pass over to Kit. There were alarm bells in regard to NRSBU when I joined 18 months ago. And some of them I felt were quite loud. One was the ability for us to convey waste from the Tasman District Council's facilities and from our Beach Road pump station through to the Bell Island plant. Our capacity there was 387 litres a second. And Tasman District Council discharge in rainfall significantly more than that. So we would have reasonably frequent overflows to the Waimea Estuary as a result of that lack of capacity. We've implemented a program of works to duplicate the pipelines from Richmond to Bell Island, and that's underway. The first parts of that are complete, and we're intending to, our goal is to try and have that complete by June 23. So the AMP includes funding for that. Another area of significant concern was the fact that our facilities didn't have emergency power supplies available, and Bell Island only had one power cable to it. We've since purchased emergency generation. The generators that have turned up in Nelson, where they're not actually physically installed yet, but that will happen over the next 2 months or 3 months. So by the time we look forward a year, we will have resolved the emergency power supply issues. We will have furthered the program of duplication of the pipework, and by 2023 we've resolved that. So we're expecting that many of our big alarm bell issues will have disappeared in 2 years' time. So we're also looking at furthering the resilience of our power supply. So we have gone out to the market with a registration of interest for solar power for a backup power source for baseload power. But then, and we've got a paper to the board under confidential in this coming board meeting about that. So.
Thank you very much, Nathan. Through the chair, Kit, have you got anything to add?
Well, I've been on the board now for 5 years, and I've always thought my biggest concern has been infiltration of our wastewater from stormwater. And in our new subdivision, and it's a problem in both Nelson and Tasman. In Richmond, in particular, we've had problems, and both councils have a program of work, but over the particularly heavy weather that we had, wet weather in August, we got some overflows at Beach Road. And we've done some work there, but it just causes you some concern. So that's the nature of it. So both councils have got programs. We need to keep working on those programs because we don't want overflows into the estuary. But you compare it to other parts of the country, particularly Auckland, we're in a much better state. But the new subdivision that we've got in Richmond West, which I know you don't particularly like, but that's okay.
You're right. Not very keen on the ones in Richmond South either.
No, so that's
so you know.
okay. We don't have enough houses, and I've just seen the cost of a brownfields development in Richmond, and it's just 200,000 more than a new house somewhere else. So, but those have got a pressurised system, wastewater system, and with a pressurised wastewater system, you don't get that infiltration. So, that is just a bonus going forward. But that's the thing that I don't think either council can take their eye off the ball in terms of that infiltration into the wastewater system. And look, it's a thing around the country. Nathan's covered everything else. When I go out and view our plant, and we're going to be visiting it next week with a hui with our local iwi, I'm actually quite proud to go there now to what I was 5 years ago. So there's been a big change, but that's because we've spent some time and some money and some manpower. So that's a real big change, and it's so much better than it was.
Good to hear. Thank you.
Councillor Courtney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nathan, in this list of concerns that you've just been going through, does the pipeline between Monaco and Bells Island rank at all?
Yeah, we have two pipelines between Monaco and Bell Island. One is was installed in 2012. It's a 800 millimetre diameter polyethylene pipe. That one I'm absolutely confident is in good condition and will do everything we need. We have a second pipeline that was installed in 1980. It's a concrete pipeline, sectional pipe, and the intent was that it would be reviewed its condition in around 2014, which didn't occur. So we've instigated a program at the present time. We've engaged a contracting or a consulting and contracting company to help us, and we've actually got that. So they are on board at the present time investigating that pipeline. We expect sometime next year to have reports back on the condition of that pipeline, and then we'll be able to identify a remedial program if one is required to repair that as necessary to bring it back into full health. The way our system is working is that the duplication of the pipelines basically gives us not only additional capacity, but also resilience. If one pipeline were to fail, we can still continue to pump under dry weather or significant events, but we would not be able to do it under all conditions. So it gives us a significant improvement in resilience throughout the entire system.
That pipeline giving you some sort of signals, early signals, there may be some weaknesses showing that?
In 2010, it was identified that there was a leak in a particular joint, and they fixed that particular joint. But because it's a sectional pipe, so it's in 2.4 metre lengths, and joins together in every length, and it's 2.5 kilometres long, there's a possibility that there are issues that we don't know about. It's sitting under the estuary, so you wouldn't see an issue if it was coming to fruition. So it's an important point for us to get in and inspect and make sure there are no movement of any of the joints along the pipeline. One of the options is to line that pipe to make, to essentially seal up the joints, but that would be fairly costly. Most, a large portion of the original pipes that we would have, such as the pipe out to the Nelson North facility that Nelson City Council own, that's a similar style of construction for the most part. And so it's not unusual. We would expect some deterioration in the crown of the pipes in particular locations where high points are and we've got air bleeds. But on the most part, I believe we'll find that the pipe is in okay condition in all of the sections that are submerged. And so there'll be sections that we'll have to repair, but not the entire pipe.
Any other questions? Councillor Brady, you got any questions?
Not at this stage. Thanks, Brian.
Right, no other questions? It's been we're up to the business plan. Someone to move?
So you've got to,
Yeah, the feedback.
business plan, you've got to accept the annual report, sorry.
Oh, we're up to, annual report, annual report. So someone to move? I thought that was, no, that was the landfill business unit. Okay. Someone a second. Thanks, Councillor Skinner. Any discussion or debate? There being none, I'll put it. Those in favour will say aye. This is item 8 that we received the annual report.
Aye.
Anyone against? Anyone abstaining? Carried. Right, the business plan. SVU business plan. Again, Mr. Clark, Councillor.
In terms of,
Well, this is actually Mr. Lavertis' report, so a bit more to it than that.
I don't always have to say something, but this is presenting the NRSBU business plan, and in short, there's no changes from what was presented in the LTP, and we're presenting this because it's required under the memorandum of understanding, and as I said, there's no changes from what was presented in the LTP, so it's a fairly straightforward report. But Nathan and Councillor Manny are here to answer any questions.
Yeah, I think you haven't got any recommendations in terms of specific feedback.
So through the chair, no, because that's a standard thing, but there's no changes. So no, I wouldn't expect me to have to write to Nathan with any changes.
All right. That's clear. Open for any questions. Councillor Skinner.
Well, thank you for that and well presented and detailed report. So this is, for scope wise, this is just for the year ahead, nowhere beyond.
that's correct. We're just for the 22-23 year.
All right. You happy to move?
Happy to move.
Yep. And Councillor Courtney's going to second. Any discussion or debate? There being none, I'll put it. Those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Anyone against? Anyone abstain? Carried. Thanks, Nathan. Thanks, Vic. Next item is the water supply activity management plan. Morning, Mr. Ruffle.
Morning.
Anything you wish to emphasise? I take it the report's been read.
Take it the report's been read and there's nothing I can add to it.
We've all seen the draft when it was come through. This is the final one. So any questions of Mr. Ruffle?
I'm happy to move.
Thanks, Councillor Neil Stevens. Someone to second. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, sure.
I always like asking Phil this question. Do it every year, so I don't see why 2021 should be an exception. So I've got a thing about manhole covers and how when you get a huge downpour and the system is overwhelmed, they pop out. And that can leave a danger to people because they can't see the hole under the water. But I know that there's new manhole plate technology, and I'm just wondering if we're adopting any of it.
Mr. Chair, yes, certainly. Most of the new manholes that we put in are now larger than the older conventional ones and they're hinged. So we would be, particularly for the stormwater and the wastewater ones, we're using in new reticulation, the brand new manhole lids. A lot of them are lockable now too, of course, so that we do lock them down as well. So yes, we are. As we slowly get around the city, we're changing the old ones to the new ones.
Right. And just because it's a passion of mine, manhole covers. The beautiful Mike Ward designed manhole covers that people see around the city, and they really love them. Do we still use those? Do we still put them out there? David's shaking his head.
Well, no, Mr. Chair, yes, we do. It's still there. We do have to get special runs made of those.
Oh yeah.
And if we do have an urgent need for these and we don't have a supply of those, then we are defaulting back to the standard ones. But they're still there. We still have the mould. The mould is still there and we still get them made.
Oh, good to hear. Yeah.
Could be enthusiasm.
They're very nice.
It's a stormwater issue.
Okay. John, I know it's water. Thank you, Dave. It was an opportunity to ask, Brian. That was the thing.
You'll have another one later on. Mel.
I'm a bit like Councillor Laurie. I can't resist asking Phil questions. I just find the whole topic interesting and exciting, really. I don't know what's that all about. How are you progressing with the renewal of meters, residential meters? You're doing a 4-year program, I read here, but is that coming to an end shortly?
Mr. Chair, yes, this year should see the end of it. We have bought a stock of meters in advance so that we can be a little bit more assured that we can get that completed. So sometime through this current financial year, we'll finish that.
I have one or two if I can find them quickly enough. On page 8 or page 111, you make reference here, and this excites me, the potential to further electricity generation, particularly within the gravity trunk mains and used photovoltaics. Now, that is an option that you're considering. Following projects have been identified to support the council's wide emissions reduction action plan. So is that a way of generating electricity from within the pipe as is being done in other parts of New Zealand?
Yes, Mr. Chair, certainly. At the moment, we do generate a wee bit of electricity up at the water treatment plant from the water that comes from the Roding dam. That's pumped up to a very high level tank, and that's at a higher level than the water treatment plant. So we generate a wee bit of electricity that way. When the raw water trunk mains were renewed, there was a preliminary look at putting in some form of electricity generation on those big pipelines coming down from the dam. The economics haven't quite got there yet, and we're just still thinking about photovoltaics. That's the solar cells on the roofs. So yes, all of these things are for us there in the future.
I don't like raising this one because some time ago you allayed my concerns in respect to it, but it's water loss. 20 to 25% of water loss from our system. So it doesn't seem to have improved. In fact, from your writings here, it seems deteriorated. Where are we with that?
Mr. Chair, yes, at somewhere around 25%, although that might be accepted internationally is reasonable, it still amounts to a significant volume of water coming out of our system. we've done a number of different initiatives of sweeping the whole system with leak detection systems, and we haven't really found any of those very large leaks that might have accounted for such a large volume. So we've changed tack slightly. We've gone back to questioning the accuracy of the meters, as you can appreciate that the water losses are all measured from the volume of water that leaves the water treatment plant, and that goes through one big single mag flow meter. And we did a calibration test on that, and that was found to be reading 10 to 11% over the flow. So suddenly what was a 25, 26, 27% flow is dropped down to sort of 17, 18%. So that is helpful, but it then does suggest to us that we should be spending a bit more time looking at the accuracy of all of the meters in the system. And that's currently where our work is.
So you've found some discrepancies on the residential meters as well?
Yes, Mr. Chair, certainly we have been testing for about the 10 years I've been in this role. We have been testing a sample of our residential meters just to see the mechanical meters inside there, and they do degrade with time, and the accuracy does drop off. We like to try and keep their accuracy to within about 4% of their stated design accuracy. And we're largely pretty good at that. It's one of the drivers for the renewal of these things. One of the things we're finding increasingly, though, is that the meters might be accurate at average flows, but they're not particularly good at low flows. And some of the meters aren't so good at the very high flows. So when it becomes a complex issue trying to work out your water losses, that's all, with this meter accuracy. So that is our focus at the moment, just trying to track down the accuracy, the banding of that, and give us a bit of a plus or minus over some of these figures rather than just a one fixed 24 or 20%.
Good. And the final question is to do with the reservoir at the up the Maitai there. You're thinking of installing, you're still talking about it, and is that going to progress? The aerators that at the bottom of the reservoir, and how many are you going to be putting in, do you think, if it does proceed?
Mr. Chair, yes, certainly. For the last year or so, we've been working with an Australian company to create a computer model of the dam so that we can test the different aeration techniques. One of them just introduces a lot of water through a single pipe through the base of the dam, just connected to a compressor. And we shift a volume of air and it just pushes out sparge points along the pipeline, and it acts to turn over the reservoir. So we don't get these dead areas anymore. Just gently sits there. Watercare in Auckland do this on quite a number of their reservoirs. So we're well advanced on that modelling, and we think it's feasible, and we'll be moving into a little bit more detailed design fairly shortly of that.
How many aerators are you planning on having in the dam?
Well, we've modelled, Mr. Chair, sorry, at the moment we've modelled either a single sparge pipe down through the centre of the dam, or we did model 2 lines on either side. And it does turn out that that single line is actually the most efficient. And I was surprised, frankly, but it does. So a single line hooked into a compressor, which will just drive air through those, looks to be the best answer for at this stage.
Why I'm asking these questions is because there seems to be some doubt as to whether you'd proceed at all with it because of lake snow, and others have experienced it around the country as well. So is that still an obstacle in progressing this?
Mr. Chair, it's something that we're working with the Cawthron Institute over, and that's the Lindavia that we've found in through there. And just at this stage, it doesn't look like the aeration would be the catalyst for creating the snow effect. The Lindavia blooms seem to be a little bit more driven by the nutrient cycles inside these water bodies. So it's not something that we've abandoned the research on. We're still working with our environmental team on the 4th floor in Cawthron, and we assuredly wouldn't be recommending to council they do anything that would create a problem such as that.
Right. Yes, Laurie, you had some questions.
Yeah, thank you for letting me have a second go, Mr. Chairman, much appreciated. I know you were keen to try and break your own excellent record for the shortest meeting, and I'm sorry if I'm messing with that plan. But Councillor Courtney's asked some questions that have sort of triggered things in my brain. First one through the chair. There's a significant section of the pipeline in the Codgers area that is along a trail where there are regularly leaks, and that section of the trail has been closed for months with a sign up saying Nelmet closed for maintenance, I think. Can you tell us what's happening there?
Certainly, Mr. Chair, there are quite a number of sections on our raw water main where some of the access trails are starting to become a wee bit unstable just with saturation. And we're also repairing quite a big slip over the raw water pipeline as well. And virtually all that work will get sorted out this financial year. And once the COVID really protocols allow us to open these tracks, we're anticipating reopening.
Oh, yeah.
We're not sort of considering a permanent closure in any fashion.
Right. It's not because there's like a geyser of water spraying out of a hole somewhere. No. Great. And also through the chair, if or when, hopefully, we do install an aerator in the dam, will that improve the water quality in the river?
Mr. Chair, we've certainly been working in the last 18 months to 2 years to improve the water quality in the river. We have, as councillors are aware, there are 3 different intakes over the depth of the dam, and we've been using different intakes at different times of year because the colder water helps us keep within our older consent conditions for the Maitai. And the colder water is also where the worst of the quality of the water lay. So we've been talking to our consent team, and we've changed our condition to allow us to use the best quality water in the dam as the backfeed water into the river. So for about the last 12 to 18 months, that's what we've been doing. We've been taking the best quality water from the top of the dam and returning that back to the river. The aerator will homogenise. Its best effect is best described as homogenising the water within the dam. So should all be at a good quality, and regardless of the intakes we use, we'll still be returning the best quality water back to the river.
So through the chair, any indication that change has led to any improvement of the health of the river?
Mr. Chair, my apologies. None of the sampling at the top end of the river has shown that there's any adverse impacts on the river from what we're doing. I'd have to really go back and look at the before and after sample results to better answer that. But I'm absolutely confident that we're returning the best quality water back to there, and our impact on the river is minimal. We've had no complaints from our environmental team since we started doing it.
Understood. But you said through the chair that you didn't think there were any adverse effects, but do you think there have been improving effects?
Well, Mr. Chair, undoubtedly using the top water in the reservoir is the better quality water. It's got the higher level of oxygen in it. So compared to using the bottom intake for the return, then the top intake is absolutely better for the river and will have improved it over that short term.
Great. Thank you very much. Good news.
Yeah. Rightio. Any other questions? There being none, so the recommendation is that we. It's not a move. That we receive the water supply activity manager and the recommendation to council that we adopt. So it's been moved by Councillor O'Neill Stevens, second by Councillor Laurie. Any other discussion or debate? There be none. I'll put it. Those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Anyone abstaining? Carried unanimously. Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break and come back to the wastewater activity management plan stormwater and the infrastructure quarterly report. So back at, say, Okay, welcome back, councillors. Would you grab your seats? Got your covers? Rightio, item 11, wastewater activity management plan. Mr. Biggs, welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, councillors, fellow staff. Take the report as read and open to your questions.
That was my word.
Sorry.
Any questions?
Happy to move it if that just helps give you a bit of
Yeah, get a bit of
foresight, insight.
Okay, it's been moved by councillor Skinner. Someone to second? Councillor O'Neill Stevens. Any discussion or debate?
Thanks, Warren. It's great work.
Rightio. Okay, I put the recommendation that we receive the AMP and we recommend that the council adopts it. Moved by councillor O'Neill Stevens, moved by councillor Skinner, seconded by councillor O'Neill Stevens. Those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Anyone against? Anyone abstaining? Carried unanimously. Thanks very much.
Thank you, councillors.
Love your work. Item 12, stormwater and flood protection.
Happy to.
Mr. Light. Maybe councillor Laurie could ask about the manhole covers.
I think we wanted
Right, take the reports read. Anything you want to highlight? It's this has been through the LTP.
No, nothing I'd like to highlight. Thank you.
No changes. Good story. We'll do that in the quarterly report. Right, it's been moved by councillor Skinner. Someone to second. Councillor Courtney. Any discussion or debate? A question?
Hi, David. Just on the whole, how strong and how good is our wastewater and our stormwater and flood protection system looking? And looking ahead, are we heading in the right direction?
So through the chair, yes, I very much say that we are heading in the right direction. We are developing a lot of good strategies. A lot of modelling is taking place to better understand what the future impacts of climate change are going to be, and also we're doing a lot more condition assessments of our assets to help lead to renewal strategies. So yeah, I would say that we're. I'd say in the last 3 years, I'd say we've moved quite a lot further.
Well then, thanks, David. Great work.
No other questions?
And forgive me if it's something you'd rather not answer, but three waters, and I know this is an asset management plan, but we're looking at changes through, looking at some of the deliberation from a long-term plan and saying not too much needs to be changed there. But stormwater, looking ahead, and as the Mayor has stated, it's labelled as an inevitability. How do you think that's going to affect that? Stormwater is going to be a bit of a tricky one because it's such a broad, from sports fields, actors, bunding, etc. And there's also a bit clearly defined areas of stormwater. Do you see if it does become, does get handed over, how's this going to affect?
So through the chair, so stormwater will be very complicated when you compare it to the other two services that would be transferring over. So the primary system, it would be a lot more straightforward. So the pipes below ground, so that would be happening. It gets more complicated when we're talking about secondary flow paths. So quite often our system is designed with a primary, which is the pipes, and the secondary, which is above ground. So a bit more work is needed by central government to work through how they deal with the complexities there. It also links heavily with transportation. So the sumps and things, they are all our transport assets. So just working through that. So there is a lot of work, I would say, to get through for the stormwater side.
Okay, and further to that, and just regards to, and I didn't ask these questions of the other two waters, I have my views, and I didn't want to get into a debate on that, but for this one, it's a fairly grayer area, I think. Do you think there'll be not going to say advantages, disadvantages. It's something we're investing in all the time in our stormwater and flooding, etc. Is it something, is it sort of a bit of a yes, no answer, whether it would be a relief to hand that over or it's going to be a complexity?
Sorry, David, through the chair, I don't think that's a question, David.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a government decision.
Yeah, but it is going to have quite an impact on us, and I appreciate.
Yeah, and it will have an impact
So I
on
was
us.
tactful on that one. The previous two, I think, are a bit more black and white, and would be quite a strong either a viewpoint. But this was just seeing if there's anything you think that we're going to be stumbling into up the future as far as defining what we will be handing over, because this is an area which is, I don't think even the central government have got their head around this portion of the Three Waters.
So the only thing I can say is that
physical infrastructure.
we really don't know, and what we will do is we'll just work through the issues as they come through. But we do expect there to be some challenges.
And those challenges are well recognised.
I think challenges are recognised, but we'll understand them probably better at this end. But I won't go any further on that. But thank you for your insight.
Right, any other questions? This has been moved by Councillor Skinner, been seconded by Councillor Courtney, that we receive the AMP and that we recommend that it's adopted by council. So another debate?
No debate. Yeah.
Okay, I'm ready to move. Those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Anyone against? Anyone abstain? Carried unanimously. Thanks very much. Quarterly report, infrastructure quarterly report. Thanks, Lois and David, Margaret. Are we going to start off with the epic?
No, we're not.
Oh,
Shortly. I'll let the team know. I'll let the team know when we're ready to run it.
right, yeah. So again, I take it the report's been read. Really, really interesting, comprehensive. Really, thank you for the effort you put into this and informing the committee of the activities in the infrastructure. But over to you. Let's tell your story.
So thank you, through the chair. The first quarter of this financial year has been another challenging period for us with a shift in the COVID levels. It's resulted in construction sites being closed down and works were suspended until levels changed. We're now starting to process the contractors' claims for that, and because of the suspended works, and we're expecting those to be around 300,000. I checked this morning and the claims in so far are at 286, and we think we're pretty close to having those finished. So my estimate of 300,000 is pretty accurate. There's been some timing impacts on our projects, resulting in an underspend against the forecast. I can, however, confirm that we have had some savings of 468,000, and this sum will be used to help offset the increased budget requirements for the Haven Road stormwater project, and also help towards set off some of these COVID-19 contractor claims. Also, the final tender costs for Washington Hastings Street Stage 1 came in approximately $600,000 less than our estimate. So any final savings from that project will help offset the additional costs on Wasney and Ely Street. The projects that all rolled into this financial year have all been finished in the first quarter. And the Three Waters reform work has continued on track. However, due to the inability to recruit, a request to transfer those funds into the Awatea pump station project's been made. And we heard this week that that's been approved, which is fantastic. The transport team have also had a number of workshops and programs delayed during the quarter, and the team's working to replan dates and catch up on community engagement. So prior to taking any questions, I'd like to show you a small presentation to acknowledge the work that the infrastructure team achieved in the last financial year. You will note that not all of the projects you see are reported to this committee, but they have all been delivered by the infrastructure team. I also just want to acknowledge Paul Shattuck and Duncan Hill, who pulled the smarts together to pull this together. So I'd like to run that. Thank you.
Can we get a copy of the soundtrack?
Thank you. It's just lovely to be able to acknowledge not just the work, but the team. It's the people that deliver. And we have an amazing group of people in the infrastructure team that do amazing things. So I'm pleased that we were able to do that for you. Thank you. Now I'll take questions.
Just one to get this started. Will that be screening at the film festival? And if not, why not? And if not, will it be available for people to see elsewhere? It seems a shame that it's just or councils. I mean, it would be great for other people to see it. Yeah. Any thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I think we should be putting that on our intranet number one. Yeah, look, this is the first time we've sort of done it, but we should be getting that out. We should be sharing it with the whole of council, giving copies. I've asked the team to chat to Kim and Portia to get it onto our intranet. Absolutely. Yeah. Social media. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more, Alec. Every one of those has got a story attached to it, hasn't it? A really good story. And before I ask him a question, getting very, very good feedback on the cycleway walkway from Main Road Stoke through to Neil Avenue there, that section. And I mean very good feedback.
Thank you, Mel. That's Alec's favourite piece of walking track.
And look, every time I use that walking track, because I do live literally across the road from it, everybody is singing its praises. It's fantastic. I love it. Yeah.
I'm so pleased you got that feedback, because people are stopping and saying, and I say, well, look, I will tell council about that. Thank you for that. We need this feedback. Thank you. So that's really good.
I do ask all those people I see to actually write to council and let people know rather than just tell me, because but there you go.
Now, I've got a couple of questions here. I want to know about the Saxon Creek upgrades section. When will that be complete? Number for section 4. When will that be completed? Have you got a completion date for that?
Thank you, through the chair. At this stage, it's about 18 months away in total. So the bit we're doing at the moment moves to the other side of the road, and then we've got the long section through the 2 private properties.
Right. So the impact on the road there will come to an end?
Through the chair, at this stage, it's approximately April.
April. Good. Righto. You did report, Lois, to us about the Modelers Park development there. It's not in here, I can't see it, but you did report to us, I thought, last time on that. And I'd like to know, what progress are we getting there? Has the contract been let for the groundworks and that type of thing?
Through the chair, the park is not an infrastructure project. The stormwater part sort of is, that we're doing up the line a little further. But in terms of where we're at, we're looking to, we haven't awarded contracts yet, but we're looking to start some work around the physical pond pre-Christmas and literally get that fenced off. It's in a bit of a state at the moment, so rather than parks needing to go in and get it all cleaned up, etc. We're going to start breaking away some concrete around the edge of the pond before Christmas. We're just waiting for some final resource consents before we can get in and do that.
Good. All right then. Thank you for that. And perhaps you were mentioning delays with projects, and is that caused by sourcing of product? Is that the main reason for the timing delays and projects?
Through the chair, the timing delays so far has been because we went into lockdown. So there have been a few delays on that. We do have delays with product, but we're doing our best to mitigate those by, as soon as we know pipe sizes, pipe lengths, those sorts of things, we are putting our orders in and purchasing those as quickly as we can. So hopefully it works out in terms of the timetables.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Brady, got any questions?
Sorry, the sound is dropping in and out. So
No, sorry, I had my microphone on, but I've just asked, you got any questions?
not at this stage, thanks.
Okay. I've just got a couple with the contracted Aotea pump. How's that going?
Through the chair.
I see it in 4.5. And...
Yep. we're doing the very deep piling at the moment, and that is causing us a little bit of grief. We've hit a very hard stone layer, which is good that there is stone down there, but it is causing us a bit of delay in terms of getting through that, and a level of vibration that's going a little bit longer than we expected. So we're keeping the community updated on that, but it is progressing well.
Thanks very much. Right, no other questions? Oh, Councillor Skinner.
Just thank you. Just on page 241, the status report on sandbags. So more of a commentary because I see it's going to come back in a future report, but just say I'm glad to see that still on the boil there.
So through the chair, that hasn't fallen away. We know that we need to do it, but it's just it's a priority issue at the moment and staff workload. But we are making plans to bring that through some.
So I understand that and I appreciate you've made a little note of that and do look forward to where that progresses. Thank you.
Great. Okay, someone to move the quarterly report. I'm moved by Councillor Neil Stevens. I'm happy to second it just to have done it before. Any discussion or debate? Thanks, Neil Stevens.
Yeah, I just want to say a massive thank you to the whole team. We've only got the shining faces here, but the whole team up on the 6th floor and all and out and about probably right now doing more mahi. It's been another COVID affected year and has just been dealt with incredibly well, including, answering phone calls even when there's been sort of rowdy kids at home and other issues popping up, always answering with a very friendly and welcoming and helpful approach. It's been just the last year's been an absolute pleasure. I love going up to the 6th floor because usually you get dragged into a whole bunch of very interesting and useful conversations that you weren't intending on having. And it's just a testament to the diversity and scale of the work that's going on up there. And I think the fact that we've delivered such a huge capital program is a testament to just how hard everyone works. And so one of the best things has also been that issues have rarely arisen, but when they have, they've just been dealt with so quickly and professionally and with great communication. When there's a minor leak, you get the phone call, there's a minor leak, but we've pretty much sorted it already, so don't worry. It's just that level of commitment to doing the best for the residents of the city, and your service does not go unnoticed. So thank you all so much.
Oh, Councillor Laurie.
Thank you. I completely concur with Councillor Neil Stevens. I'd just like to add that our infrastructure team, in many ways, often the public's interface with council because they're the people who are out there doing the mahi in the community, on the footpaths, on the roads, out and about. And what I always think they do very well is they're really good ambassadors for council. And I whenever I see people out there, quite often they're chatting with members of the public who have come up to say, what are you doing? And, I hope my ratepayer dollar isn't being spent on that. And I always see the crew doing a really, really good job when it comes to, letting people know what we're doing. And I think it's a really important part of their role. And they do it really well. So thank you.
Thanks very much. I'll say, as chair, just looking at the core report and just the example up there is that, we've got a broad range of projects over the whole city and all aspects of the business. I think we've got about 24 different active capital projects. And you've got about 35 performance measures there. And you look at it, it's on track. It's being delivered on time and budget. So just reflecting on that as it goes to the professionalism of the whole infrastructure team. You're a professional in all aspects of it. You know what you're doing, the way that you deal with people, deal with this committee is a testament to professionalism. And I'm always struck about the knowledge and competence of the team. You know your stuff. You're thinking about issues, you're thinking about solutions, and you're competent, and you actually care about the city and care about the people that live here. So the passion that goes with that. So I would like to say, personally and on behalf of the committee, a big thank you to the entire infrastructure team for stuff you've done over the quarter, the first quarter, but also for last year. You do yourselves very, very proud. Thank you very, very much. So with that, the recommendation is that we receive the infrastructure quarterly report and its attachments. It's been moved by Councillor Neil Stevens, and I'll second it. Those in favour will say aye. Aye. Anyone against? Anyone abstained? Carried unanimously. Thank you very, very much. I think that concludes the business. We'll close with karakia. Ketu. Tuia ki ronga, tuia ki waho, kua te roto, tuia te waho, tuia te hei taunga, ka ronga te po, ka ronga te a, humie, huie, tai kie. Oh, thanks very much. Declare the meeting closed. Thank you. A bit longer than I did, but that's